Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Happy Father's Day. I had a wonderful father, John S. Ray. I'm wearing a t-shirt that has the Great Smoky Mountains, which are on the border of Tennessee and North Carolina. And imagine never been there, but imagine there's a lot of camping that goes on there as folks enjoy the great outdoors. And in 1971, I joined the Boy Scouts, and I did a lot of camping in the Boy Scouts. That was one of the best things about my childhood. Boy Scouts of America, BSA. And I was in for 7 years. It was probably the main activity that I had outside of school. Just loved Boy Scouts. And we would have our meetings at Our Savior's Lutheran Church on Hilliard Road in Rocky River, Monday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. And we actually, that summer, the first thing I did, I remember my dad, my father was big on Boy Scouts. He had been a Boy Scout in Marion, Ohio, and really enjoyed it. And my older brother Mark was in Boy Scout Troop 490, and then so I remember going to a meeting, and then actually the first, I think it was just like one meeting. I didn't really know anybody except my brother. And then I went to Beaumont Scout Camp for a summer camp for a week in the summer of 1971, and that was my beginning in Boy Scouts. Beaumont's on the east side of Cleveland. It's in Rock Creek, Ohio. Yeah, and I had a wonderful time there at Beaumont. And, I was Mark Ray's younger brother. I had a really good time, and didn't really know many. I was treated well and had a good week. I didn't have responsibility, so it was fairly easy. I think the weather was good. You do stuff. You're sleeping in a tent, and the thing with Boy Scouts is what's good about it is you have a lot of human relations, which is important in life. You're dealing with other kids, and mostly it's fun. Some of the kids were hard on each other, but that's part of life. We have to learn how to deal with people and get along. And the other main thing is when you go camping, we had to do there was so many things that we had to do. The first thing, get to the campsite, set up the first thing was to set up the tarp for each patrol. The troop was divided into patrols, we had 4 patrols, 4 groups of kids. And each patrol had a tarp, which is just a canvas where you could basically go under if it was raining instead of going in your tent, because the tents really you couldn't stand up in. Get the tarp set up, and we set up our tents, and we have to be orderly about that. We had these poles and the stakes and so forth, and the ropes, and then we all had our jobs, different jobs that we were assigned, and somebody would have to. We had these big heavy plastic water containers. People would have to go find where the water supply was, fill those up. That's important, and collect firewood, because we cooked our meals over wooden fires. So, and you had to get the wood that was old. If it was green, it wouldn't burn. You had to have some nice. So that was a job going out in the woods collecting firewood. And you have to have different types, small pieces and larger pieces. And a guy would have to, somebody'd have to set up the wood and then get the fire going for our cooking. And we would have a metal thing that would go over, and we would do our cooking. And that would be another job, would be the cooks. And then the cleanup, very important. You got to make sure everything's clean, all the pots. And we used to eat out of Frisbees, which was great, and we would play with the Frisbee, eat out of the Frisbee. So you got to clean up all the silverware and the pots and so forth. And so, we of course had a sleeping bag, sleeping in our tents. But aside from that, now at Beaumont, there were different activities. We worked on merit badges. They had a lake where you'd go, I think, sailing on or canoeing, and a swimming pool. And you work on merit badges, which is these various skills and different things, archery, bird study, and so forth. And anyway, Boy Scouts was a wonderful experience for me. I just loved it. And I think when you're a kid, and especially I was 11, And at that time, we went to co-ed schools, public schools, and it becomes kind of tough dealing with having the boy-girl thing. And so I found in school I felt kind of uncomfortable with that whole tension, boy-girl dynamics. And Boy Scouts, it's all guys, so I felt more comfortable, and it could seem like have more fun, with a bunch of guys joking around and so forth. And we did a lot of camping over the years. Beaumont Scout Camp every summer, and we went to Philmont. I went twice to Philmont Scout Ranch in Cimarron, New Mexico, and there we did a lot of backpacking. So you got to, break camp every morning. We'll get your breakfast, break camp, pack up in your backpack, everything, your tents, everything had to be packed. And then head on the trail for the next campsite, which would take, 3, 4, 5 hours, and then next campsite, set up camp, same thing. And Philmont was wonderful. Tinnerman Canoe Base in Ontario, Canada. That's in Killarney. I just looked up on. It's now closed. It was apparently owned by the Cleveland. Must have been donated by somebody to the Cleveland Boy Scout organization, Greater Cleveland, and it's apparently no longer operating. Too bad. And that's where we went canoeing. Yeah, and a lot of these canoe every day, canoeing to a new campsite, and so. Boy Scouts, there were hardships. Generally, it could be rain, and then mosquitoes. That's the one thing that used to bother me a lot, the mosquitoes. And, the rain and the mud, especially. And the cold. We had winter camping. It's hard to believe. We used to go sleeping outside in the winter, setting up your tent in the snow. Golly. So anyway, the Boy Scouts, I started in this, summer of 71. And in the fall, we started having our meetings, and I was actually elected. I remember, we had to elect patrol leaders, and I was in the Roadrunner Patrol, and this one guy got elected, and then we didn't really like him because he was kind of difficult, so we formed a new patrol, and I was a patrol leader. So early on, I just had joined in the summer. I had leadership. Which, when you go camping, that's when it's pretty tough, and you got to get guys to do their jobs or assign work and so forth. And because a lot of guys are, they don't want to work or whatever. And so that's big, but they have to, things need to be done. The great thing in Boy Scouts is they didn't really, we'd have adult leaders. We had our Scoutmaster. Will Hagen was at the beginning. He was real good. And then Cliff Euchre, who I really loved, became like a second father to me. I saw him this past year. Yeah, his son Keith had died. I saw Cliff Euchre, good guy, really good Scoutmaster. And the thing is, I thought the adult leaders did such a good job because they're just there to make sure things were safe and so forth. But aside from doing the work that had to be done, we could just joke or we could have fun. We used to play frisbee and stuff and roam around, and so there were not. We didn't have to do anything that was really meaningless, which some scouting organizations. Do that. So anyway, that was just a wonderful thing, Boy Scouts. Now the cover on today's video is from All in the Family TV show, which ran from 1971 to 1979. 205 episodes. I think it was a tremendous program. The characters, it was a family. Archie Bunker, the father, played by Carol O'Connor. Edith Bunker, his wife, played by Jean Stapleton. Sally Struthers, their one child, played by, Gloria Bunker, Gloria Bunker Stivic, played by Sally Struthers, and Michael Stivic, played by Rob Reiner, who became a very powerful movie director or producer, something like that. And so it was a tremendous program. I remember early on people thought, oh, it's promoting racism because Archie Bunker was, kind of a backward guy. The thing is, got into these, and it really got into the generation conflict. This is in the 70s, the World War II generation and the young generation. And Archie, he was racist, and he was, really kind of probably anti-Semitic and stuff against foreigners, and didn't treat us, kind of a sexist. But the thing is, they made fun of that. He was kind of this buffoon. But he wasn't. The thing that was great about it is he wasn't considered evil. He was a good guy deep inside. He was a good person, even if he had these flaws, which were really cultural. So, like they say, condemn the sinner. Condemn the sin, don't condemn the sinner. So you could laugh at him being sort of ridiculous, and the fact that his racism was sort of, this is wrong, but you could see he was still a good guy. So, and we shouldn't condemn people. That's what I think was great about the show. Yeah, and he called his wife, Edith, he called her a dingbat, which wasn't, he often mistreated her. But again, there was love, and she was really wonderful. Edith, she was so kind and forgiving and patient, very loving. And, every time he'd come home, she'd rush to meet him and, welcome him home from work. And so that was, and that was I think one of the funniest parts was his relationship with his son-in-law, because Michael Stivic, Rob Reiner, was married to his daughter, and they were living there, in the family home to save money. And Archie is sort of this older bigot, and Michael, or whom he called Meathead, which was funny, was this sort of a kind of radical, the young people of that time, sort of this youth anti-war movement and so forth. So they had their conflicts. And as they say, the greatest generation versus the baby boomers. Huh? Yeah, the theme song was "Those Were the Days." And one of the things I liked, some of the things I can remember, Michael would, say, "Oh, Archie," he would say, "You're this," and Archie would be insulted. And one of the great lines, he said, "I resemble that remark," instead of saying "I resent." I use that line because I think it's really funny. And now Edith was, Archie's kind of a tough guy, or I don't know what the word is, stoic, but and not that comfortable expressing affection. And Edith is very affectionate. He would say, "Stifle yourself," which wasn't that great. And then there was this George Jefferson, was this black guy who played by Sherman Hemsley. He was a neighbor. Yeah, and he was just really interesting and funny guy. He had his own spin-off show, The Jeffersons. And they had interesting conflicts, those two, Archie and George Jefferson. Now the interesting character was Maude, played by Bea Arthur, another spin-off program. And Maude, of course, was kind of a feminist, so they would obviously have conflict because Archie was very traditional and so forth. And he was not for this women's lib stuff, And then they had the wonderful theme song, "Those Were the Days." By boy, the way Glenn Miller played songs that made the hit parade. Guys like us, we had it made. Those were the days, and you knew who you were then. Girls were girls and men were men. Mister, we could use a man like Herbert Hoover again. Didn't need no welfare state. Everybody pulled his weight. Gee, our old LaSalle rang great. Those were the days. Yeah, they would have, Edith would be playing the piano, and Archie, they would take turns singing that, and they would smile, and it was very nice. So that was, All in the Family, which I think really was a nice program, and because it got into these painful issues, we need, countries need to change. We needed to change. This racism has to go, and mistreating foreigners or whatever, and the mistreatment of women, all these different things. We need to change, but on the same time, we need to be patient and don't condemn people who have, who are practicing things that they grew up with. And so I think that show must have had a very positive effect on our country, and. Because, if you were older and identified with Archie, you could see, okay, they're making fun of him, but he's not being condemned as an evil man. He's still a good man. He gets up and goes to work, and he was in the Second World War. So I think it was a wonderful program. And remember one time Archie and Michael, or Meathead, they were going through the doorway. They got stuck in the doorway. It was so funny, and they're like, ugh. And then one time they argued about, what do you do? Do you put on both socks and then your shoes, or a sock and a shoe and a sock? They argued about that. So that was great, and got into human relations. Apparently the chairs, Edith would say, "Get out of my chair," if anybody sat in his chair. Apparently his chair and Edith's chair are in the Smithsonian Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. Tremendous program, really, really wonderful. All in the Family. Now, the events of 1971 in January 12th, All in the Family debuted on CBS TV. On the 17th of January, the Baltimore Colts won the Super Bowl 16-13 against the Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl V. The 25th of January, Idi Amin deposed Milton Obote and became the dictator of Uganda. That wasn't funny there. That was tragic, and a lot of, he killed a lot of people. He was a pretty terrible dictator. February 9th, Satchel Paige became the first player inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame for his Negro League Baseball achievements. So this was a wonderful thing to recognize those fellows who were not allowed to play Major League Baseball. 26th of February, UN Secretary General U Thant declared that the vernal equinox would be Earth Day. Very nice. The 28th of February, Evel Knievel set a world record by jumping with his motorcycle over 19 cars. That was a big thing, back when we were kids. Evel Knievel, eventually I think he got hurt. Sorry about the telephone. Okay. March 1st, a bomb exploded in the men's bathroom of the U.S. Capitol. The Weather Underground claimed responsibility. They were this, I think, you could even say a terrorist organization, part of this anti-war movement, and I may have been connected to communism. On the 5th of March, Led Zeppelin, the rock band, performed in Belfast, that's Northern Ireland, Stairway to Heaven for the first time, a famous song. On the 8th of March, Joe Frazier defeated Muhammad Ali in what was called the Fight of the Century at Madison Square Garden in New York City. Yeah, I have it written in my notes, Joe Louis. Joe Frazier. Yeah, that was the great thing. Those I think they fought 3 times. Great rivalry, great boxing rivalry. Okay, on the 12th of March, Hafez al-Assad became the president of Syria, actually became dictator, and his son is still in power, and of course, with this ongoing civil war in Syria, trying to hang on to power. On the 28th of March, The Ed Sullivan Show had its final episode. That was long going. Had a lot of, I think they had the Beatles performed on Ed Sullivan. April 10th, Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia opened. I believe where the Philadelphia Phillies played. Maybe the Eagles, too. The 21st of April, Francois Duvalier, also known as Papa Doc, died in Haiti, the dictator of Haiti. He was a pretty bad dictator. And his son, Jean-Claude Duvalier, became the new leader. He was called Baby Doc, president for life. So father and son, 2 dictators. The 30th of the month, the Milwaukee Bucks won the NBA championship, defeated the Baltimore Bullets in the finals 4-0. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the star. And that's the last time they won the NBA title. I was rooting for them in the playoffs because, that's a long time ago. They have a long title drought. May 18th, the Montreal Canadiens won the Stanley Cup, defeating the Chicago Blackhawks in the Stanley Cup Finals. June 17th, Richard Nixon declared a war on drugs. And, of course, I believe that's been pretty much of a failure. Shows the limits of government. And, they tried to do something, but very often government makes things worse. The 30th of June, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie was released. Yeah, that was a famous children's book, and Gene Wilder was the star. On July 3rd, Jim Morrison of The Doors died in a bathtub in Paris, France. So you could say he broke on through to the other side, which was a famous song. Very tragic, the death of Jim Morrison. August 21st, there was a bomb exploded, apparently placed by communist rebels at Plaza Miranda in Quiapo, Manila, Philippines, and it injured anti-Ferdinand Marcos candidates. So this was considered part of the controversy in the Philippines with the as Ferdinand Marcos he was still a legitimate president, but would become a dictator. September 3rd, Qatar became independent of the United Kingdom. Qatar on the Arabian Peninsula. September 8th, the John F. Kennedy Center for Performing Arts opened in Washington, D.C. with a Leonard Bernstein Mass. And that's a wonderful place in Washington where they have, in memory of John F. Kennedy. From September 9th to the 13th, the Attica prison riot in Attica, New York took place. 42 people were killed, I believe mostly inmates and guards. The 29th of September, a cyclone or a typhoon, a hurricane, was in the Bay of Bengal. 10,000 died in India. Gosh, just imagine. Horror, very tragic. October 1, Walt Disney World opened in Orlando, Florida. Yeah, so we had Disneyland in California and Anaheim, and now on the East Coast in Florida. And the Orlando Magic get their name connected to that in the NBA. On October 17th, the Pittsburgh Pirates won the World Series the final game of the World Series against the Baltimore Orioles. Roberto Clemente, star player. On the 25th, the UN admitted China to the United Nations, but expelled Taiwan, because that's what the Chinese would not, that's what was part of their conditions for joining. The 27th of the month, the Congo, large country in Central Africa, was renamed Zaire by the dictator Joseph Mobutu, or Mobutu Sese Seko. November 18th, Oman became independent of the United Kingdom, also on the Arabian Peninsula. The 24th of November, D.B. Cooper, who hijacked a Northwest Orient Airlines airplane and was able to get a $200,000 ransom. He jumped out of the airplane with a parachute and was never seen again. That's a big mystery. What happened? Did he survive that jump? And apparently he had this idea of getting this money, and then he could get away with it. So it's a mystery. The 28th of November, the Grey Cup was played. The Calgary Stampeders won against the Toronto Argonauts. Canadian football. It's like the Super Bowl of Canada. December 2, six Persian Gulf sheikdoms founded the United Arab Emirates. Interesting, also on the Arabian Peninsula. On the 4th of the month, there was at the Montreux Casino, Montreux, Switzerland. Frank Zappa had a concert, and the casino was apparently burnt down at the same time. And he later wrote a song called Smoke on the Water regarding that. The 16th of December, Bangladesh became independent of Pakistan. Eventually, it used to be East and West Pakistan, and if East Pakistan felt like they were being dominated, so they wanted out, and they had to fight a war that India supported them. The 30th of December, the first McDonald's opened in Australia in Sydney. Now, in my family, my father turned 47. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Really good man. Dad turned 47. Mom also turned 47. My brother Mark turned 19 in November. He finished high school, graduated from Rocky River High School in June, and then in the fall started at Oberlin College. So he was done with high school. Now our sister Pamela, she died April 11th, 1971, about 2 months short of her 17th birthday. She was a junior at Rocky River High School. We were in the Bahamas on Cistern Key, and she got sick. Was sick for only a few days, but we couldn't get her to a hospital because we're on an island and there was no hospital there, and you had to have an airplane. And she got real sick at night, and it was too late to get a seaplane to get, and she died. It's a very tragic loss. So yeah, so that was the end of her education, and big loss for our family because she was very outgoing, very. So our family became quieter, and then my parents became sad. Definitely were very sad. Just imagine, they never really got over it. And I don't think you would, because it was such a horrible thing to lose. She was a wonderful person, and we've still missed her. Still kind of frustrated because she was a wonderful person. You'd like to have her around, but she was gone. And the thing that and my parents were horribly wounded because my father really loved her, and my mother was in conflict with her, so that was tough. And the thing is, I remember is that, after she died, and Mark went to college in the fall, so our family, life is always changing. And Mark was gone in the fall, and I remember the thing is, I'm a comedian. Look at this, the title of this video is Comedic Pedro, and that's always been something part of who I am. I like to probably joke around too much sometimes, and excuse me. I remember, I could make I was always as a young boy, I could make my parents laugh. And after Pam died, I remember they stopped laughing. So that was just kind of tough. Hard on my comedy career, but I could still make people laugh in school. And then now Patricia, she turned 14 in November. She was in the junior high, going from grades 7 and 8. So this was tough. That's a tough place to be in the junior high. And here she lost her sister. Yeah, and to whom she was, obviously it's her sister, and it was a very tough loss for her. And now for myself, I turned 11 in May, and I was in finishing up grade 5 in June, and in the fall grade 6, and so like I said, yeah, and that summer I played Little League baseball, and so for me, my sister's death was, obviously things were quieter, and I knew my parents were sad. I remember my father; he was crying after that the day she died, and I said, "What's wrong?" I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Oh, my heart." He said, "My heart is broken." And I remember, I got when we got home, I got the obituary, and I put it in my wallet because I thought that's what you should do. I wanted to do the right thing, and. So anyway, she was gone. Now the thing is, I was talking to a friend of mine, a good friend of mine growing up, and he had a father who was pretty bad. It was pretty abusive, violent, and so forth. And I think that would be a horrible. That was a tough childhood for him. And I lost my sister. My parents developed depression. They were very sad. But still, our home was a peaceful place. My parents were kind. They were good people, so I had a very good upbringing and a good family life. And yeah, this was a big loss, but I like the expression, "It's all good," because everything is leading us toward the spiritual path. And my parents became better people, because there's a lot of tragedy in the world. There just is, and no one's immune. And when you experience tragedy, then you can be more understanding, hopefully. Yeah. And because you know what people have been through, and that's what they did. So I feel, looking back, I feel for them and what they went through, and but I feel like you feel sorry for them. But at the same time, they did a lot of good. They weren't destroyed by this. So I think that was really good. So anyway, our family, life is always changing, and this is the reality of life. And but. Something you have to get used to, and it's a hard thing in life. Death is a hard thing, but it's we all know we're all gonna die. So, and losing Pam. Anyway, God bless her. I know my father was always looking forward to seeing her again, and now both my parents are gone now. So hopefully they're seeing her and getting reacquainted, and because he really missed Pam. They had a very loving relationship. But anyway, it all leads to the spiritual path. Eventually, I developed trouble myself. I developed depression and so forth, and drinking, but it led me to my spiritual path, self-realization fellowship, SRF, and which is just wonderful. So when hardships come, I believe that God loves us, Divine Mother loves us, and so whatever. They say hardships is the shadow of Divine Mother's hand, bringing you home, saying, "Come home," because we are loved. We are loved in this world. God loves us. Divine Mother. I call God Divine Mother. Divine Mother loves us. That's the great thing about life, because otherwise, there are all kinds of things happen in life which can be pretty terrible. All the human suffering, physical health trouble, financial problems, and so forth, relationship troubles, whatever it is. And the human body is subject to trauma, from getting your car and you don't know if you're going to have a horrible accident. And then, you can really have terrible suffering. But anyway, the main reality is God loves us. Divine Mother loves us, and everything's okay because of that. Well, so that's the story. Anyway, I wish you well. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you. Take care. And I'll see you next time.